This is the Paycheck to Daycheck Reselling Podcast.
I'm Liz.
And I'm Ashley.
Together, we have been making money online collectively for over 10 years.
Our mission is to help you start, learn, and grow a reselling business and to inspire you to turn your paycheck into a daycheck.
The world is changing, and we want to help you change with it. Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Paycheck to Daycheck podcast. Today, it's going to be a solo episode for myself, Liz. Before I get into today's episode, I did want to mention a few things. A couple episodes ago, we did one about retail arbitrage, tips, strategies, selling those items on eBay. And at the end of that episode, Ashley and I announced that we would be putting out our very first leads list. We offered it to members in the Daycheckers Facebook reselling community that we have. And then after that, we opened it up to everyone else. So if you follow us on social media, hopefully you've seen that post and the link to see what it's all about. If not, I will leave it in the show notes or the description down below. This list is really honestly perfect for anybody who is just starting out, or if you're looking to add a little bit of retail arbitrage into what you're already selling online. The list is $29. It's $1 a lead. So there's 29 leads. You can find these leads at places like Walmart, Ross, Marshalls. Let's see, we put one for, I think there was Pottery Barn, there was Hobby Lobby, Target. So if you live close to those stores, this might be a good list. And really, we wanted to do this to kind of get some feedback to see if we have enough demand from people in our community, whether this is something that they're looking for, that they can benefit from. And if you are going to purchase it, we highly recommend doing it right now because we're going to actually be closing it this coming Wednesday, October 25th. We will be taking the leads list down. We open it up to the first 50 people. It's one where if you are going to be purchasing it, we highly recommend going out and finding those leads right now. That's one thing with leads lists is even when we were putting it together, before we ended up putting it out, we went through and rechecked some of the leads and we thought we were going to have a little bit more than 29. But some of those leads, we felt like after looking at them a second time, those probably aren't the best leads to put on the list. So that's kind of what we did before we put out the leads list. We actually went back through a second time and removed anything that we felt was not going to benefit people who purchased it. So let's get started with today's episode, which the topic is going to be biggest mistakes that resellers make when shipping, and specifically, mainly those that ship on eBay. So these are some of the mistakes that I've kind of seen not only myself make, but being in other reselling groups or just seeing other resellers post, that these are some of the biggest mistakes. So sometimes Ashley and I actually can't record together. We live on pretty much opposite sides of the earth. She's in New York. I'm in Arizona. Different time zone. So sometimes it just doesn't work out with our schedule to be able to record. Ashley likes to do the Mindset with Ashley episodes, which she just did in the last episode that we put out. And that was how scarcity mindset is hurting your reselling business. And I love when she puts these out because I'm the one that actually does all the editing for our podcast. I edit it and I upload it to YouTube and all the different podcast platforms. So I get to listen to it as I'm editing it. And I just find that when she puts those out, they are very motivating. We've talked about it before. Reselling can sometimes not be very motivating because you don't have like a strong support system like you would if you went into the office and you have, your team that you work with. So I like to listen to these because it helps me avoid burnout, keeps me motivated, inspired. So I really like when she does those episodes, but I like to do the solo episodes where I'm talking about shipping because not that I'm passionate about shipping, but I feel like I could help people. That was like my biggest challenge when I first started reselling was learning how to ship. I don't think I ever shipped anything pretty much besides like a letter that needed a stamp. Like I just was really uneducated on how the post office worked, where you should ship certain items, the shipping services. There was just so much that I had to learn. So I like to do these episodes to kind of not just help you guys, but also maybe teach you something that you didn't know. So I actually wrote down about 20 different mistakes that I feel like resellers make when it comes to shipping. I think shipping is very important, especially when you're selling on eBay. Poshmark, on the other hand, makes it really simple to list items and then ship them out, because once the item sells, you automatically get a label sent to your email, and then you print it out, put it on the package, and boom, you're done. With eBay, it's a little bit more complex. You really need to know like what you are selling, what that item is, what's going to be the best shipping service, how much you should charge for shipping, how much you should build it into the price. So it just is a little bit more to know when it comes to shipping. So I think the first mistake people make is sometimes offering free shipping on large or odd shaped items. So for us, any items that are going to be over 3 to 4 pounds that are maybe oddly shaped, we aren't sure exactly how much that is going to cost. We have in the past made mistakes of offering free shipping thinking, okay, well, that item's only going to cost $20 to ship, when in fact it ended up costing $40. And then that just took away the money that we earned from that sale. So I do have an example for that. So we have sold in the past wooden tennis rackets. We sold a lot of them. There was 40 of them. We knew that that was going to be kind of an oddly shaped box that we would have. It wasn't going to be cubic. It wasn't going to be a small poly mailer that we would ship them in. So we actually took all those 40 tennis rackets. We found a box for it, and then we weighed it, measured it, and then added calculated shipping. So if you're unfamiliar with calculated shipping on eBay, is where you include the weight and the dimensions of a package, and then it's set to where the buyer on their end will then pay shipping. So let's say that somebody buys those wooden tennis rackets. Before they purchase the item, the shipping cost will automatically be calculated based on the dimensions that we put in and where they live. So that really protects you as a seller. What if I sold those to somebody in Arizona? Obviously, that wouldn't cost that much to ship. But if I sold those rackets to somebody in like New York, Maine, even Miami, Florida, those shipping costs are going to be drastically higher because they have to go further. Using calculated shipping for some of these items that maybe aren't, a uniform size, they're going to be bigger, larger, more oddly shaped, then you're going to definitely cover yourself with the shipping cost. And then you'll know, okay, well, those wooden tennis rackets, maybe I'm going to sell them for $5 a piece. There's 40 of them. So I'm going to set the listing for $200 plus calculated shipping that the buyer would have to cover on their end. So that's just a tip for if you're setting up an item, you're listing it. I highly recommend those bigger items, setting it, calculated shipping. The second mistake is shipping in the wrong packaging. So USPS, we all know they offer free shipping supplies. They have padded flat rate envelopes. They have just a regular flat rate envelope. They've got medium flat rate, large flat rate, priority shoe boxes. They've got mailing tubes. They've got all sorts of free shipping supplies. But if you are going to ship something in a medium flat rate box, you have to use the medium flat rate box for the shipping service. So you can't just pay for priority shipping, weigh it, and measure the box, the medium flat rate box, and ship in that. If you're going to ship in a medium flat rate box, that has to be the service that you choose. Same with if you're doing, let's say you are shipping a pair of shoes and you're going to use the post office shoe box. You cannot select the shipping service Ground Advantage because those are two different services. And I've seen people do this in the past. Just because they're free shipping supplies doesn't mean that you can use them for every single service. If you're paying for a padded flat rate envelope, that you are using the padded flat rate envelope to ship the item. The third mistake I've seen are people using these free shipping supplies for packaging. When you are shipping an item, let's say you're sending it Ground Advantage and you need to, you shake the box and it's still the item shifting inside. You need a little bit more padding. You ran out of bubble wrap. You don't have any packing paper. So you look and you have a lot of padded flat rate envelopes. You cannot use those to pad the items. I know people say, well, I do it all the time, but I'm a rule follower. I don't run with scissors. And I feel like I don't want to abuse these free shipping supplies because I don't want them to ever go away. Like I like having the free shipping supplies that the post office provides. It definitely saves us money. We don't have to pay for any shipping supplies. And honestly, if you need more shipping supplies, they are everywhere. Look on Facebook Marketplace, look for people giving away bubble wrap, boxes. packing paper, those air pillows, you can definitely find more packaging. I feel like it's kind of being lazy as a reseller if you're using the free shipping supplies when you're packing an item. The fourth mistake is putting in the wrong weight to get a cheaper rate. So most of the time you will actually see when you are going to buy a shipping label on eBay, it recommends that if like an item is 13.9, round up to 14. And that's actually how like UPS does it. So if I trying to buy a label for 2 pounds, 7 ounces, it's probably going to charge me for a 3-pound item. So it definitely rounds up, and that's what people say to do. So always try to round up and don't try to put in a wrong number just so you can pay less in shipping. You might get away with it a couple times. It's not going to happen every single time. And if that does happen, then they're going to reweigh it, see that you put in the wrong weight or wrong dimensions, and then you're going to, in the end, have to pay more. And then you have to pay more as a retail rate. So on eBay, we get a discounted shipping rate from these services for using eBay and putting in, the weights and the dimensions on eBay, buying the shipping through eBay. If you get charged down the road, they're not going to charge you that discounted eBay shipping rate. They're going to charge you the retail rate. So you're going to end up paying more in the end. So do you want to risk that as a reseller, especially if you know your margins and you know you are only going to make $5 on that item? Why risk having to pay more in shipping down the road? I do remember hearing about a reseller who did do that. They were shipping at the time, all their packages first class, when indeed those packages were over 1 pound. And this person was shipping them at like 8 to 10 ounces to get that cheaper rate when they were over a pound and they should have been paying a lot more. In the end, that's mail fraud. So just be really careful with the dimensions that you're putting in, the weights that you're putting in, and always make sure that you're rounding up. Mistake number 5, not using enough packing material to protect the item. I've used this example before. My very first set of dishes I sold, I shipped them and not one of them arrived in one piece. They were completely broken. I didn't know what I was doing. If you have especially fragile items, whether it's shipping one coffee cup or dishes or maybe something that's made of glass, overprotect the item. I would rather pay a little bit more in shipping to protect the item. So I use extra bubble wrap. I like to use the bubble wraps that have the big bubbles. I feel like those have a lot more cushion. I like that rule where if you can pick up a box and you can shake it and you feel the items move inside, you don't have enough packing material. You need to definitely secure your items. Think about how you want that item to arrive. Would you want that item to arrive and it have been, moving in the box and then maybe there's a chip off the glass? Just always make sure you're using enough to protect your item. The 7th mistake is dropping off packages without getting them scanned by the carrier. Now, I know we sometimes are in a big hurry and we'll just drop them off, or there's certain places that, we drop off our packages. We know the people, we trust them. But this actually just recently happened to us. We had a buyer message us. We had shipped a golf club. We brought it. Casey remembers going into the postal store, and they accept UPS and they accept post office packages. Casey remembers going in, handing it to the woman. The woman remembers because, golf club packages, they're pretty unique looking. They're long and, that there's probably something in there that's like a golf club. So it's something that's a very familiar package. So Casey remembers handing it to the woman and the buyer said they never received it. We looked and it shows that we created the label, but nothing was done after that. So Casey went back to the postal store. The woman's like, I remember you dropping it off. I remember the carrier getting it. She says the carrier scanned it, but there was no scan. So if you want to be safe, and I think especially with the holidays coming up, I think it's really important that you are getting those scanned once you pass them on. Because just because you create the label in eBay doesn't mean that your package is going to show up scanned until you actually get that scan from the carrier. So if you go up to the postal counter at the post office, make sure that they're scanning it in front of you. If you are using the Dropbox, you might want to look to see if there's a self-service kiosk where you can actually scan that item. That way you know that item was scanned in at the post office. You put it in the Dropbox. Same with UPS, FedEx. Around the holidays, they just get so much volume. They're overwhelmed. They sometimes don't have enough help. So just do yourself one favor and make sure that you're getting it scanned. Keep those scan sheets. That way, if down the road the person doesn't get the item, you can show where it was last scanned. The 8th mistake is not having the right shipping supplies or packing supplies when an item sells. So if you're selling like we do, and I always use this example, we sell a lot of golf clubs. We use the 4x4x48 boxes. We either purchase them on Amazon or we've been lately getting them from a place called Granger, where actually we save on shipping. We just go and pick them up. It's pretty close by. I think it's like a 15-minute drive. So we get the boxes from there. We know that we need to have those boxes on hand. Nothing is worse than selling an item, looking everywhere for a box and not having one that will fit, especially with some of these larger odd-shaped items that you wouldn't use the uniform boxes. We sell a lot of shoes, so we always keep the 12x6x6 eBay boxes on hand. When I see we're running low, I order more, especially around the holidays. You're going to be busy. Sales are going to increase. You're going to be shipping a lot more. So just make sure that you do have the right size boxes on hand. If you are going to do calculated shipping for an item, don't just weigh the item and then measure the item. Make sure that you've put it in the box. If you need to put padding on it, make sure that you do that ahead of time. It's a lot more work, but then once that item sells, you already have it ready to ship out with the correct weight and the dimensions. Number 9 is spending too much time dropping off packages. So you can get packages picked up for free from the Postal Service. All you have to do is go on, create a free account, and then schedule a pickup. Or it could be a small fee. So let's say that you have a bunch of UPS boxes. Maybe you're an Amazon seller and you're sending in a shipment. You also have boxes that are going to go UPS because you sold some stuff on eBay. You can actually schedule a UPS pickup. That's something that you could do and it will save you time. Another thing to think of are these postal service stores that accept multiple carriers. So we've got a couple really close to us. Otherwise, we have a UPS store and a FedEx store, but they're a little bit of a drive. So we like to use these postal stores. There's one that just does FedEx and then the post office. And then there's another one that accepts FedEx, UPS, and post office. So by dropping them off there, then we know that we are going to be saving time, not having to drive around to all the different carrier stores and drop off packages. Mistake number 10 is not knowing that you can get your packages shipped out faster if you drop them off at a UPS customer care center. So if you have an item that's going to be shipped UPS ground, let's say the buyer message and is like, I really need this item as fast as you can. They don't want to pay the extra shipping. If you drop it off there, you're going to get the package there faster. If you're using like a UPS store, there has to be a driver that comes, picks that item up, brings it to their local hub, which are the customer care centers. So if you're looking for a faster way to ship an item, that's a good place to go. And if you sell on Amazon, let's say, especially during Q4, you've got shipments that you want to send in, I wouldn't even bother dropping them off at a UPS store. I would actually go right to the customer care center. And then that way, you know that you're skipping a step and you're going to get those items shipped faster. Mistake number 11, not looking around for cheaper shipping rates. So most of us, we're just going to be using eBay. The eBay shipping discount is pretty good, but maybe you have an item that you are going to ship on a different platform and you need to look for discounted shipping rates. So just know of places like ShipStation gives a discount, although you have to have a monthly plan for that. But if you're looking for a free site to buy a cheaper shipping label, Pirate Ship is a really good one. You'll get a discount, but there could be other shipping services that are cheaper. Let's say that you have a very large item. There's a place called UShip. Maybe you are selling on eBay and you have a really really big item and it's going to just cost way too much to go UPS or FedEx, there are other shipping services. There is one called UShip where you actually put out what you need shipped. People bid on it. Now that might be a little bit tricky because you wouldn't do calculated shipping, but maybe you would have, a certain amount that you would put on it and then you would use that shipping service to ship it. So there are other options other than eBay. If you're shipping items on different platforms, that there are free shipping sites like Pirate Ship where you can buy discounted labels. The 12th mistake is waiting until the last minute to ship out items. And there's a couple reasons why this is a mistake and you should try to avoid this. So the first thing is if you wait, you might overlook something. Maybe you don't have that shipping box that you thought you had. And so because you waited till the last minute, you're rushing around trying to find the right box. Maybe you're calling stores, you're checking with family, friends, see if they have a certain size box to ship that item in. And then also it's going to be shipped, that item, especially on eBay, is going to be shipping outside of your handling time. And it definitely affects your seller status. And it also gives you the chance of the buyer being unhappy because that item that they thought you were going to ship within your handling time ended up not shipping. We have 1 day handling time, and we actually talked to a growth advisor at the eBay Open. He saw in our account that we actually ship same day. He recommended that we change our handling time to same day and then put a cutoff time that we will ship that day. So we are still kind of going back and forth whether that's going to be the best for us. The reason why we do 1 day handling is to kind of give us a little buffer if we can't get that item out right away. So that's what we like about the 1 day, because if an order came in right now as I'm doing the podcast, it's 9:30 in the morning, we would get that item out 2 day because that's just what we do. And it makes for a happy customer. If you look at our eBay feedback, a lot of the feedback is, wow, this came very, very fast. That's part of good customer service, is providing things on time. So definitely, if you are going to set a handling time, make sure that you're shipping out within that handling time. All right, this next one, number 13, I actually just saw somebody post in a reselling group about this. So delivering a package locally when it wasn't a service offered. So this person sold an item to a local person and wanted to deliver it to that person instead of shipping it like it was set up to be in the listing. So in her listing, she had it set to, I don't know what shipping service, maybe she was going to ship it Ground Advantage, but instead she wanted to just go deliver it because the item was so close. You cannot do this. So you have to, if you are going to do local pickup, you need to have your listing on eBay set up as local pickup. So with local pickup, if you have that listing set for local pickup, you either will scan a QR code or you will put in a 6-digit code that the buyer received when they purchased that item from eBay. So by doing that, either the QR code or putting in the 6-digit code, then you are showing that you have delivered and dropped off that item locally to the person. If you had a listing and you set it up for UPS Ground, FedEx, home delivery, or post office Ground Advantage, and you were going to ship it one of those ways, you have to upload a tracking. So if you drop off that package locally to a person, you will never have the tracking uploaded. You could technically buy the label and upload it, but why would you do that and pay for shipping when you're not going to use it? But that item will never show delivered. So then technically the buyer could go in there and they could be like, yeah, I never received this item. And eBay would look and they'd be like, you're right. I see the tracking was purchased, it was uploaded, but the item never showed delivered. So then you're out that sale. Or what had happened to us, because we did learn from this, we did have that happen. We didn't really know anything about local pickup. We had somebody come and pick it up, and then that was just a ding on our account. It showed as a late shipping because we never had that tracking show that it was actually in the process of, or in transit to the buyer. And that was a ding on our account. So if you're going to do local pickup, make sure that it is in the listing. And if somebody wants you to deliver it locally, what you would then have to do is cancel that sale and then relist the item with local pickup. Number 14, not enrolling in the eBay International Shipping Program. We learned a lot about this, and I shared it in the eBay Open episode that I did. I learned a lot about the International Shipping Program that they have. It's free to join. There's no charge. If your item sells to somebody internationally, all you have to do is ship that item to their international hub, which they do have 2 in the United States. Ship it there. They deal with the rest. You don't have to deal with custom forms. You don't have to deal with the buyers. Once that item is delivered to their hub, that item is out of your hands. So if that buyer has any issues with it from there, you are definitely covered. So I see a lot of people intimidated with the international shipping. We don't offer that for us to purchase the international shipping labels. We do the international shipping program because we feel like, why not? eBay's offering it, and hopefully we'll get a couple more sales. Sellers not taking time to resize boxes. So maybe they're going to ship out an item. They only have this giant box and they just ship it in that. And it reminds me of, like, if I'm sure you guys listening, you buy items on Amazon, and when you get items, you're like, wow, that was a really big box for this tiny item that I ordered. So I think that's a big mistake, because what you're doing is you're getting charged for the box size and the box weight when you could take the time to either find a smaller box or resize the box, use a box resizer. And if you can cut it down a few inches, sometimes you can save a couple dollars. So there's been times where we won't tape up the box, but Casey will give me the weights and the dimensions, and maybe the item will be 18 by 14 by 6. And he's like, okay, put in the weights and the dimensions into eBay. Let's see what the shipping labels show. What if I cut it down to 16? What will that show? And sometimes it's lowered the shipping price to where we're saving $2 to $4. So sometimes just taking the time to resize boxes, you'll save some money on the back end. Number 16, and we've all made this mistake, shipping items without looking them over. I recently sold a shirt, and I went to look for, or Casey went to look for it, and he's like, I can't find that shirt anywhere. And I'm like, we haven't sold it. I checked List Perfectly. I'm like, okay, it's still showing that it's active on Poshmark and it's active on eBay in List Perfectly. And I knew we didn't sell that item. Looking further into it, we had sold a lot of shirts to this buyer, and he was a repeat buyer. So he buys like a bunch of t-shirts at a time, usually 6 to 8. I must have shipped him the shirt we sold because the shirt he purchased was on the rack. So I made that huge mistake. So that was my mistake by not looking over all of the shirts that he purchased to make sure I grabbed the right ones. Another mistake I made when I didn't look over the items, I was listing the items. They looked like the same pants. They were 30 by 32 by 30 or 30 by 30. I didn't notice that there was a 30 by 30 and a 30 by 28. So I listed them, put that there was a quantity of 2. Luckily, before shipping them out, I double checked the size because I've learned to double check every single item. And I discovered that there were 2 different size pants. So then I messaged buyer, explained that, that was my mistake. Which size would you like? Because the listing showed one size in the title and the description, but then in the item specifics, it had the other size. I don't know what I was doing, but that was my mistake. So definitely looking over those items. And then the third mistake I made when I did not look over items, we had a winter jacket. It was part of a lot that we bought from our friend Josh. He sold us this big box of clothing that he didn't want anymore. And I think we paid $50 for it. And there was like over 100 pieces. There was this winter jacket. And usually when I'm listing, I will check things. I sent the item to the customer and I didn't check the pockets before shipping it. So I don't know if this buyer was telling the truth. It honestly was a $12 jacket. Like, we probably didn't make any money, but at least I got it out of our inventory. But she messaged me and said she found an old Kleenex in the pocket. And I'm like, I am so sorry. She was like, that's gross. I'm like, just here's your money back. Keep the jacket. I don't care. Keep the jacket. It was not that much. It's out of here. Whatever. I'll be out the shipping costs. That's fine. I wanted to do that because obviously I didn't want her to leave a negative, but I couldn't say whether there was anything in the pocket. Maybe there was a Kleenex, bunched up Kleenex in there. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe she was upset because it was a dry clean jacket and she didn't know it. And she's like, I was going to wash it. That's so gross. Now it's dry clean only, which I'm like, whatever, I'm going to refund you and I'm so sorry about it. And that's all I can do. So the moral of the story is make sure you're looking over the items. Even if you feel like you do that when you're listing your items, it's just really good practice before you're shipping anything out. Make sure it's the right size, check the pockets, make sure there's not, any random hair that could go on a shirt where somebody could get it and be like, oh my God, you just never know. It's just better to, be proactive than to have to deal with an angry customer. Now, this mistake is number 17, not insuring high ticket items. This is going to be really important during the holidays. I've seen a lot of people have these very expensive electronics, whether that's a PlayStation or, a Nintendo, something like that, that's going to be a very high value. Some sellers will sell it and not get signature confirmation or pay for that extra insurance. I would highly recommend if you're selling items, in my opinion, over like $150, $200, I think it's good to have signature confirmation, maybe extra insurance, because you never know what's going to happen. But just be really careful during the holidays. Not every buyer is a bad buyer, but there are people who are going to try to get a free item and say, oh, well, that item didn't arrive. It shows delivered. I never got it. And just really be careful. Make sure that if you do have those higher ticket items, that you are paying for the extra insurance and signature confirmation. All right. The 18th mistake was actually one that we've done before, and that is shipping in an unapproved box. So we received a bunch of boxes from a friend, didn't think anything of it. We found the box. It was the perfect size for the item that we needed to ship. And then we looked, and that was the only package not picked up by the Postal Service. We were like, that's really strange. Like, how did that happen? And then when we look, I was like, oh my gosh, we didn't even notice. It was a liquor box. So you're not supposed to ship items in a liquor box, because even though you know what's in there and you know it, you're not shipping liquor, like that's something that can't go certain services. And the post office is not going to spend the time to open up the box to make sure there's not liquor in there. So just be really careful with items that you're shipping out, what you're using. If you're recycling an Amazon box, you might have one that has the lithium battery sticker on it. Remove that before you ship it. Make sure that there's nothing on the box that might flag your item and cause your item not to get shipped by the carrier. Number 19 is a mistake that I see a lot. Knowing how to handle a buyer who puts in the wrong address. So you never want to ship an item where the buyer messages you and says, I need you to change the address. That was my old address. I live somewhere new. And then you change it in eBay and then ship out that package. You never want to do that, because eBay will not back you up if the buyer says they didn't receive the item. So if you're uploading the correct tracking, you have the correct address from the buyer that was put in when they purchased the item. So when you got the order, there was that original address. If that one is still in there and the item got delivered, you'll be covered with the eBay money back guarantee. If you change it, then that voids it. So one thing that people don't realize is that you actually have to have the buyer rebuy the item. So you have to cancel that sale with the wrong address, relist the item, and then have the buyer buy it with the correct address. And I know that's usually a really big pain and it's time consuming, but what you need to do is just make sure that you're protecting yourself. There's people that's how they get free items. I mean, they prey on people who maybe don't know what to do. So just don't make the mistake of shipping something to the address that the buyer wants you to change it to. Always cancel the sale, relist it, have them buy with the correct one. The last mistake people make is not investing in the right shipping tools. Reselling, it's a lot of work, but you want to put systems in place. So at your shipping station, you want to make sure you have the right tools to put you up for success. So that could be investing in a thermal printer. You can find them used on eBay. They're not that expensive. That way you're not having to pay for ink. If you have a regular printer to start and maybe you're just selling an item a week, maybe it's not that big of a deal. But I definitely, if you're starting to sell a lot more, invest in a thermal printer. Ink is very expensive and it's time consuming to have to print those labels, cut them out, tape them down. A thermal printer in the end will save you money. Another thing is an accurate scale. Make sure that you have a scale that you can weigh large packages, small packages. We actually have 2 different scales. We have one for like really big boxes, ones that we might be shipping into Amazon. And then we have a smaller one for eBay packages. The ones I like are the ones that have the readers to the side. So that way you can kind of move the reader out of the way and still see it if you have a box that covers the screen on the scale. So just have the right scale, make sure it's accurate. That's very important. Also, maybe invest in a box resizer. Like I said, you'd be surprised by cutting down boxes just a few inches. It might take a little bit of time to do that, but in the end, you're going to be saving money on shipping, and then that just means more money in your pocket. Shipping is just really important. It's something that you have to pay attention to. There are different ways that you can definitely try to save money on shipping. Shipping is usually a pretty big cost that you have when it comes to selling online, whether it's eBay or any other marketplace. But just really kind of thinking about ways that you can, save time, save money. And in the end, it's just going to help you be better at shipping items. Thank you, everyone who is supporting the podcast, everyone who has joined our Daycheckers Facebook group. And if you're interested in the leads, like I said, I'll leave them down below in the show notes or the description on YouTube.
All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Paycheck to Daycheck Reselling Podcast.
Anything we mentioned in this episode will be linked down below in the show notes or description down below.
Be sure to share this episode with anyone you think it will help and follow us on social media at P2D Podcast.
Thanks again for listening. Keep working towards that Daycheck.